The smell hit me first, an overpowering wave of artificial lime, thick and sickly sweet, hanging heavy in the humid summer air. Then the sound, a high-pitched shriek of pure, unadulterated rage, echoing off the fence line. My eyes focused on the pool, my pool no longer sparkling blue but transformed into a vast, shimmering, gloopy expanse of translucent green goo. And right there, flailing uselessly in the middle of it, hair plastered to her face in green clumps, sputtering and screeching like a banshee trapped in sugary quicksand, was Brenda. My neighbor. The entitled Karen whose belief that my property was hers had finally met its wobbly, sticky consequence. Seeing her trying to breaststroke through what was rapidly becoming thousands of gallons of setting gelatin? Let's just say the satisfaction was profound. But getting to that gloriously green jiggly moment of payback? That took months of simmering frustration, escalating audacity, and ultimately, a truly industrial quantity of dessert mix. Was a saga. My life before Brenda moved in next door was the picture of suburban tranquility I'd spent years working towards. I'm Mark, a graphic designer, and spending most of my days translating client visions onto screens means I value my downtime, my real-world space, immensely. Buying this house, my first, felt like finally breathing out after holding my breath for years. It wasn't huge, just a comfortable place on a quiet street. But the backyard, that was the dream. Especially the in-ground pool. It wasn't just a feature, it was the symbol of making it, a private oasis earned through countless late nights wrestling with vector files and impossible deadlines. I pictured peaceful weekends, floating aimlessly, the only sound the gentle lapping of water and maybe some background music. Maybe grilling burgers for a couple of actual friends, people who waited for an invitation. As a single guy, maybe a touch more introverted than extroverted, that pool represented my decompression zone, my shield against the demands of the outside world. The neighborhood itself seemed perfect, tidy lawns, quiet evenings, friendly waves exchanged from driveways. The blissful, beautiful boredom was exactly the pace I craved. I spent those first few weeks just soaking it in literally and figuratively. Mowing the lawn felt satisfying. Skimming leaves off the pool surface was almost meditative. I had no idea that the suburban equivalent of a Category 5 hurricane, clad in yoga pants and wielding weaponized entitlement, was about to make landfall right next door. The calm wasn't just before the storm, it was about to be utterly obliterated. The first tremor wasn't tectonic, it was acoustic. A hedge trimmer. Screaming like a dental drill at precisely 7 o'clock on a Saturday morning, vibrating against the wooden fence separating my yard from the newly occupied house next door. Bleary-eyed, clad in pajama pants and a bewildered expression, I stumbled outside. There she was, hacking at the shrubbery with a vengeance usually reserved for mortal enemies. Brenda. Even in the early morning light, she was a caricature brought to life. Maybe late 40s, early 50s, crowned with that unmistakably sharp, asymmetrical blonde bob, the kind that looks like it requires its own architect. Her athletic wear was pristine, clearly more fashion statement than functional gear, paired with box-fresh white sneakers. And perched atop her head, even while doing battle with foliage, were enormous sunglasses. She didn't see me approach, lost in her task. "Excuse me," I managed, trying to inject neighborly warmth into my voice despite the jarring wake-up call. "Morning." She startled violently, hand flying to her chest, sunglasses wobbling precariously. "Oh, goodness, you scared me." Her tone immediately shifted the blame as if my presence was the intrusion, not her pre-dawn power tool concert. "Sorry," I said, gesturing towards the offending trimmer. "Just wondering if maybe the yard work could wait an hour or two. It's pretty early and the sound really carries." Her lips, painted a startlingly bright coral, pursed. "Well, I believe in getting things done early. Before the heat sets in." Her gaze swept critically over my side of the fence. "Looks like your side could use a good trim too while I'm at it." The casual critique, delivered as if she were doing me a favor, caught me off guard. Before I could respond, she plowed ahead. "I'm Brenda. Moved in yesterday. You must be." She left the sentence hanging, an expectant pause demanding my information. "Mark," I supplied, forcing a polite smile. "Welcome to the neighborhood." "Thanks," she replied, but the smile she offered was thin, her eyes already casing my backyard, zeroing in on the pool like a heat-seeking missile. "Oh, a swimming pool. How wonderful. My children are just going to adore that." A tiny alarm bell went off in my head. Yeah, it's nice to have, I mumbled, already picturing reinforcing the gate latch. We'll definitely have to pop over for a dip soon, she chirped brightly, turning back to her hedge as if the matter were settled. Conversation concluded. I retreated indoors, a knot of unease tightening in my stomach. It wasn't just the noise or the unsolicited landscaping advice. It was the laser focus on my pool, the immediate, breathtaking assumption of access. We'll definitely pop over, not could we maybe, or would you mind, but a statement of fact. It felt less like neighborly enthusiasm and more like laying claim to newly discovered territory. I tried to rationalize it, moving stress, maybe she's just awkward. People say weird things. But deep down I knew. This wasn't awkwardness. This was the opening move in a campaign of suburban annexation. My tranquil oasis was now on Brenda's map, and she clearly intended to plant her flag right in the middle of it. It only took a few days for Brenda to escalate from verbal annexation to physical invasion. I was deeply engrossed in a video conference call, pacing my home office, which fatefully has a clear view of the backyard. It was a sweltering Tuesday afternoon. The air conditioner hummed, a lonely defense against the oppressive heat. During a particularly tedious segment where someone was reading bullet points directly off a slide, I glanced out the window. My blood turned to ice. Splashing in the shallow end of my pool were two unfamiliar kids. And lounging on my favorite poolside chair, scrolling nonchalantly through her phone as if she'd been born there, was Brenda. She hadn't just come over, she brought accessories, specifically, a giant, offensively pink flamingo inflatable that bobbed mockingly near the steps. My mouth fell open. I fumbled for the mute button on my headset, my heart suddenly hammering against my ribs. Had I heard the gate? No. I'd been focused, yes, but surely I would have noticed? She must have just waltzed in. Let herself in like she had a standing invitation. Which she most definitely did not. The presentation slide changed, but the words blurred. All my focus was riveted on the scene outside. Brenda, occasionally murmuring instructions to the kids, careful with the splashing darlings. Like a benevolent queen overseeing her court. The sheer, unadulterated nerve was almost impressive. The second the call ended, I might have abruptly hung up mid-sentence, I don't recall. I bolted from my chair and flew out the back door. The sharp sound of my feet hitting the patio must have alerted her. She looked up, phone still clutched in her hand, a flicker of surprise quickly masked by an overly bright, saccharine smile. Mark. Hello there. Just taking a quick dip to beat the heat. Absolutely scorching today, isn't it? She trilled, her voice echoing slightly across the water. The kids, maybe 8 and 10, stopped their splashing instantly, their eyes wide as they stared at me. I planted my feet, took a breath, and fought to keep my voice steady. Brenda. What is going on here? Her smile tightened at the edges. Just enjoying this lovely pool. Like I mentioned, the kids were just dying to try it out. She waved a hand towards them vaguely. Say hello to Mark, children. They offered hesitant, watery hellos. Brenda, I repeated, taking a step closer, my shadow falling over her chair. This is my yard. My pool. It's private property. You can't just come in here whenever you feel like it. She actually let out a little scoff, lowering her phone as if I were the one being absurd. Oh Mark, don't be so stuffy. We're neighbors now. What's the harm? It's just water. Plenty of room. She adjusted her sunglasses on her head, peering down her nose at me. The harm, I said, feeling the heat rise not just from the sun but from my own boiling blood, is that it's mine. You need to be invited to be here. You need permission. Invited? She sounded genuinely baffled, as if the concept were alien. But it's right here. It seems such a waste not to use it on a day like this. Honestly, I assumed you wouldn't mind. Sharing is caring after all. I stared at her, momentarily stunned into silence by the pretzel logic. Assuming? Sharing is caring? About someone else's private property? Well, your assumption was wrong, I finally ground out. I do mind. Very much. I need you and your kids to gather your things and leave. Right now. The mask of neighborly pleasantness dissolved instantly, revealing the hard, entitled lines beneath. Well, that's certainly not very welcoming, she sniffed, her voice dripping with offense. Fine. If that's how you want to be. Come along, children, let's go. Apparently, Mr. Scrooge here doesn't believe in community spirit. She began collecting her belongings with deliberate, exaggerated slowness, muttering just loud enough for me to hear about unfriendly people, and some folks being so precious. The kids scrambled out of the pool, dripping water onto the hot concrete, looking bewildered and vaguely guilty. As she ushered them towards the side gate, the gate she'd somehow opened, she paused and turned back, delivering her parting shot. You know, Mark, a little kindness goes a long way in a neighborhood like this. You might find yourself very lonely being so possessive. And then she was gone, leaving behind a damp, flamingo-haunted patio, the lingering chemical scent of chlorine mixed with her cloying perfume, and me standing there vibrating with barely suppressed rage. I immediately went to the gate. The simple latch was easy to flip open from the outside if you knew how. A padlock. Definitely needed a padlock. But the real problem wasn't the hardware. It was Brenda's software, her internal programming that told her my backyard was an extension of her own domain. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. This was the declaration of war I'd feared. And I had a horrible feeling Brenda played dirty. How much further would she push? My horrible feeling proved prophetic. The brand new heavy-duty padlock I installed on the gate wasn't a barrier. It was apparently a personal affront, a challenge Brenda felt compelled to overcome. A few days later, I came home from running errands to find unmistakable evidence. A brightly colored, child-sized water gun left just inside my gate, lying in a small puddle of quickly evaporating water on the hot pavement. No sign of entry, the padlock was secure, but the message was clear. We were here. We can still get close. It felt like psychological warfare. Then the campaign shifted to public opinion and passive aggression. A note, written in looping, overly friendly cursive, appeared tucked under my car's windshield wiper. Mark. Noticed your pool water looked a tiny bit cloudy when I was admiring your roses. Might want to check your chlorine levels. Just looking out for you. Your neighbor Brenda. Smiling face was smiling as. The smiley face felt less like warmth and more like a smug little jab. How was she seeing my pool water clarity from the street unless she was deliberately snooping over the fence? The whispers started soon after. I was out trying to wrestle my recycling bin to the curb when Carol, a generally pleasant woman from across the street, paused her morning walk. Mark, she began, her brow furrowed with concern. Is everything all right between you and Brenda? I straightened up, wiping sweat from my forehead. As all right as it can be, I suppose. Why? Carol hesitated, fiddling with the strap of her purse. Well, she happened to mention at the book club meeting, she said you were being rather unwelcoming? About the pool? She seemed genuinely hurt, said she was just trying to foster some neighborhood camaraderie and you were quite sharp with her. My hands clenched around the handle of the recycling bin. She was twisting the narrative, painting herself as the victim of my supposed antisocial behavior. Carol, I said, keeping my voice even despite the anger bubbling inside. What Brenda didn't mention, I'm sure, is that her idea of camaraderie involved letting herself and her children into my locked backyard to use my pool without asking. When I politely asked them to leave my private property, that's what she's calling sharp. Carol's eyes widened in surprise. Oh, she definitely left that part out. Letting herself in? Oh my, that's different. She looked genuinely taken aback. Okay, well, that sheds a whole new light on things. Thanks for clarifying, Mark. It felt good to set the record straight with Carol, but how many other neighbors had Brenda happened to mention this skewed version of events to? She was actively trying to isolate me, portraying me as the neighborhood Grinch hoarding his precious pool. The incursions became more subtle but persistent. Sometimes I'd come home and find the padlock fiddled with, scratched slightly though still locked. Once, a small, deflated beach ball appeared mysteriously overnight, lodged behind my pool pump equipment. It was like dealing with a ghost, only this ghost left behind cheap plastic debris and a lingering sense of violation. I knew I had to try talking to her one more time before escalating things further, appealing to reason, however futile it seemed. I caught her outside, ostensibly watering her petunias, though she seemed more focused on watching my house. Brenda, I began, walking over to the property line. We need to sort this out. The pool situation. It's not communal property. It's mine. I need you to respect the boundary. Please. She turned, hose in hand, and gave me a look dripping with condescension. Mark, honestly, are we still on about this? It's a swimming pool, not Fort Knox. Loosen up a little. Think of the children. I'm thinking of my privacy, Brenda, I countered, my patience wearing thin. And the fact that what you're doing is called trespassing. It's making me incredibly stressed. If this continues, my next step is filing a formal complaint with the Homeowners Association. Her eyes flashed with anger. Is that a threat? Over some water? Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable how selfish some people can be. She turned her back pointedly, aiming the hose at a perfectly healthy-looking rosebush with sudden, intense focus. Conversation over. So I followed through. I drafted a detailed email to the HOA, outlining the initial incident, the subsequent evidence of attempted entry, the conversation with Carol confirming Brenda was spreading misinformation, and my direct request for her to stop. The reply I received a few days later was infuriatingly bland. Dear Mr. Henderson, it began, the HOA encourages neighbors to resolve interpersonal disputes amicably. Perhaps establishing designated guest hours for your pool could foster better community relations? While we understand your frustration, without concrete proof of ongoing violations, such as dated photographs or witness statements during the act, our ability to intervene formally in property access issues is limited. Concrete proof. They wanted photos. They wanted witnesses. They wanted me to become a full-time surveillance operative just to enjoy my own damn backyard in peace. The stress ratcheted up another notch. Every creak of the fence, every splash from a neighbor's sprinkler made me jump. My sanctuary felt tainted, constantly under threat. Brenda wasn't just dipping her toes in my pool, she was drowning me in anxiety. Her entitlement was a suffocating presence. And the HOA's bureaucratic shrug felt like a green light for her behavior. Fine. They wanted proof? A witness? Something undeniable? A new, much more proactive plan began to form. If polite requests and HOA complaints wouldn't work, maybe technology, and a healthy dose of desperation, would. The HOA's pathetic response was the final straw. Resolve disputes amicably? We were long past amicable. Concrete proof? Fine. If Brenda was going to force my hand, I'd play the card she dealt me. I wasn't thrilled about it. Installing a camera felt like surrendering a piece of my own privacy, but she'd made my backyard a stage for her entitlement drama, so I decided it was time to record the performance. I researched discreet outdoor security cameras, settling on a small, weather-resistant model easily concealable under the eaves of my roof. I installed it myself one afternoon, positioning it carefully to cover the entire pool area and, crucially, the gate, while deliberately avoiding any view into neighboring yards. It felt like a necessary evil, a tool to reclaim my stolen peace of mind. I linked the camera feed to an app on my phone, enabling motion detection alerts. Then I tried to forget about it, immersing myself in a demanding design project. For nearly a week, silence. A fragile hope began to bloom. Maybe my threat of the HOA, however toothless their initial response, had actually worked? Maybe she'd finally gotten the message? That hope shattered the following Tuesday evening. I was burning the midnight oil, or rather, the late evening pixels, trying to meet a tight deadline. My phone buzzed on the desk beside me. A notification popped up. Motion detected backyard camera. My stomach plummeted. With trembling fingers, I tapped the notification and pulled up the live feed. My breath hitched. There she was. Brenda. Bold as brass, she wasn't fiddling with the padlock this time. She produced a key, from her pocket and unlocked the gate with sickening ease. Where had she gotten a key made? Had she somehow lifted mine temporarily? The violation felt even deeper now. She slipped inside, cast a furtive glance around the empty yard, then waved someone else through. Not her kids. Two women I vaguely recognized from down the street, both armed with towels and sun hats, looking excited. Brenda, playing the gracious hostess, led them towards my lounge chairs. Okay, bringing friends was a new level of audacity. My first instinct was to charge out there, phone recording, and confront them all. But something made me pause. Brenda was talking animatedly, gesturing towards the pristine blue water. That I saw it. One of the women reached into her purse, pulled out her wallet, and handed Brenda cash. Folded bills. I zoomed in digitally, my heart pounding. There was no mistaking it. Brenda accepted the money with a practiced, almost smug little nod and tucked it swiftly into the pocket of her ever-present yoga pants. The pieces slammed into place with the force of a physical blow. It wasn't just trespassing. It wasn't just unauthorized pool parties. was a business. A clandestine, cash-only neighborhood swim club operating out of my backyard. Using my water, my pool chemicals, my electricity for the pump, my liability, all while she played the victim to anyone who would listen. The sheer, unmitigated gall of it stole my breath. This explained everything: her persistence, her utter disregard for my warnings, her fabricated narrative of me being unneighborly. She wasn't just entitled, she was running a scam, profiting directly from violating my property rights. My anger shifted from hot fury to a cold, calculating rage. I kept the camera recording, documenting every moment. She directed her clients, like a seasoned cruise director, pointing out the pool noodles, offering them drinks. Had she raided my fridge too? No, thankfully she brought a cooler bag. They splashed and chatted for the better part of an hour while Brenda held court from the lounge chair. Finally they packed up, thanked Brenda profusely, "See you Thursday, Brenda," and left. Brenda meticulously relocked the gate behind them, the irony was almost painful, and disappeared back towards her own house, presumably counting her illicit earnings. I saved the entire recording immediately, creating multiple backups on different devices. This was it. The concrete proof the HOA demanded, and then some. This wasn't just trespassing. This was potentially fraud, operating an undeclared business, creating liability issues I hadn't even considered. They couldn't ignore this. But simply reporting her, handing over the evidence, it felt anticlimactic. After months of being gaslit, stressed, and having my personal sanctuary invaded and monetized, it felt inadequate. She hadn't just stepped over a line, she'd set up shop on the other side. The situation demanded a response as outrageous as her behavior. My gaze drifted towards my kitchen pantry. I remembered seeing some bulk packets of Jell-O mix bought for some long-forgotten potluck or party idea. An idea sparked, wild, slightly unhinged but undeniably fitting. Brenda treated my pool like a free-for-all, a public commodity? Fine. Let's make it unusable. Memorably unusable. The HOA wanted proof? They get it. Brenda? She was about to get baptized in the consequences of her own sticky entitlement. Payback, I mused, tapping my fingers together, is a dish best served, giggling. And green. Very, very green. The Jell-O plan wasn't conceived in a moment of madness, but rather meticulously plotted during several late-night sessions fueled by righteous anger and excessive caffeine. It felt like the only language Brenda might actually understand. Inconvenience on a grand, ludicrous scale. Poetic justice with a distinctly artificial lime scent. Step 1. Procurement. My online search history suddenly looked very strange. Bulk gelatin powder. Calculate volume of pool. How much Jell-O to thicken 15,000 gallons? The answer, I discovered, was biblical proportions. I wasn't aiming for a solid block, just a thick, viscous, inescapable sludge. Something that would transform a refreshing dip into a nightmarish struggle through slime. Lime green seemed the most visually arresting, almost toxic-looking choice. Several discreet online orders were placed with catering suppliers, scheduled for staggered deliveries on a weekday morning I knew Brenda typically spent at a mysterious yoga retreat, which I now suspected was code for counting her pool cash. The delivery guys shot me deeply perplexed looks as they deposited box after industrial-sized box labeled Lime Gelatin Dessert Mix onto my porch, but I just smiled enigmatically. Bulk baking project, you know. Step 2. Dispersion strategy. Simply dumping powder into the pool wouldn't work effectively. It needed circulation. My pool's filtration system, with its skimmer intakes sucking water in and return jets pushing filtered water out, was the key. The slightly insane plan involved pre-mixing highly concentrated Jell-O slurry in large, clean trash cans, purchased specifically for this purpose, using warm water from the garden hose to help dissolve the powder. Then, at the critical moment, I'd pour this concentrated green goo directly into the skimmer baskets. The pump would, theoretically, draw the slurry through the filter system. I mentally crossed my fingers, hoping it wouldn't instantly grenade the expensive pump, a calculated risk, and distribute the thickening agent throughout the pool via the return jets. Step 3. Timing and execution. This was crucial. I needed Brenda in the pool, preferably mid-business transaction. My surveillance footage revealed a pattern. Tuesday and Thursday afternoons seemed to be her peak operating hours. I chose the upcoming Thursday. I emailed my boss requesting the afternoon off for a sudden and severe plumbing issue requiring immediate attention. It felt appropriately euphemistic. Thursday dawned hot and mercilessly sunny, perfect weather for Brenda's illicit enterprise. My stomach felt like it was hosting a butterfly cage match. Nerves warred with a giddy, almost manic anticipation. I discreetly moved the mountain of Jell-O boxes and the large mixing cans to my back patio, shielded from view by the house. I began filling the cans with warm water. Around 2:15 p.m. my phone pinged. Motion detected backyard camera. My pulse leaped. I swiped open the app. Showtime. There was Brenda unlocking my gate with her key, bold as ever. She ushered in the same woman from the previous recording and a sullen-looking teenage girl carrying goggles. The ritual played out. Cash exchanged hands, Brenda pocketed it, the teenager cannonballed into the water, and Brenda settled onto my lounge chair like she paid the mortgage. She even dipped her feet into the water with a contented sigh. The sheer arrogance fueled my resolve. This was it. No turning back. Heart pounding like a drum solo, I grabbed the first giant box of lime powder. Ripping it open released a plume of fluorescent green dust and that cloyingly sweet smell. I dumped it into the first can of warm water, grabbing a long-handled garden hoe to stir frantically. The water transformed into a thick, vibrant green sludge, the consistency of watery paint. "Okay, Mark. Deep breaths. You got this." Hoisting the surprisingly heavy can, I moved like a suburban ninja, creeping low along the side of the house towards the pool equipment pad, hidden from the pool deck by strategically planted bushes. The pump hummed its steady rhythm. Brenda was laughing at something the other woman said. The teenager was practicing kicks, holding onto the pool edge. I reached the primary skimmer box, yanked off the lid, took aim, and poured the entire can of glowing green slurry directly into the intake. Glug glug glug. The pump whined for a split second, then seemed to gulp it down. Yes. I scurried back for the next can, mixing powder and water with desperate speed. Pour. Back again. Mix. Pour into the second skimmer. Can after can, box after box, the lime green tide flowed into the heart of my pool's circulatory system. Mission accomplished, I retreated back inside, my hands trembling slightly, shirt damp with sweat and probably a bit of green powder. I glued my eyes to the camera feed on my phone, barely daring to breathe. For a minute, nothing. Then, subtle changes. Was the water returning from the jets looking slightly hazy? Less transparent? A faint greenish aura seemed to emanate from the return ports. The teenager stopped kicking. Mrs. Henderson, she called out hesitantly. Is the water supposed to feel weird? It's kinda thick? Brenda, engrossed in her phone, waved a dismissive hand. Don't be silly, dear. It's probably just sunscreen or something. But she lowered her phone, peering into the water with a slight frown. The other woman, floating on her back nearby, paddled a hand through the water. You know, she might be right, Brenda. Feels slimy. Definitely slimy. The green tint was undeniable now. The water clarity plummeted, replaced by a shimmering, translucent emerald green. Like swimming in diluted alien blood. Or well, Jell-O. Brenda stood up, wading into the thigh-deep water near the steps. Her frown deepened into suspicion. What in the Sam Hill? I watched, mesmerized. The transformation accelerated. The ripples on the surface moved sluggishly. The water wasn't just green, it was visibly thickening, taking on a syrupy quality. EW. Gross, the teenager shrieked, trying to swim towards the steps. It's sticking to me. Look. She held up her arm, coated in a thin, glistening film of green goo. Brenda's suspicion erupted into dawning horror. What is this stuff? Is the filter broken? Mark, she bellowed towards my house, forgetting I wasn't supposed to be there. Mark, get out here. The other woman was now trying to propel herself towards the pool edge, her strokes becoming laughably ineffective, like trying to swim through molasses. Brenda, help. I can barely move. Brenda plunged her hands into the viscous liquid, lifting them up. Thick, green slime dripped slowly from her fingers. Her face cycled through disbelief, confusion, and then ignited with pure, incandescent rage as the realization finally hit. Jell-O? Are you kidding me? Is this freaking Jell-O? Her scream was primal, echoing across the manicured lawns of suburbia. She finally understood. She knew who was responsible. She began to flail towards the steps, trying to wade through the rapidly thickening goo. It wasn't setting solid, not yet, but it clung, resisted, sucked at her limbs. She slipped on the now slimy pool bottom, went under with a choked gasp, and resurfaced looking like a swamp monster, sputtering curses, covered head to toe in shimmering green slime. Her expensive blonde bob was now a grotesque, dripping green helmet. The teenager was openly crying by the steps, frantically trying to scrape the goo off her skin. The other woman had managed to awkwardly haul herself onto the pool deck and was staring back at the jello-fied pool in sheer horror, patches of green slime clinging to her swimsuit and skin. That was my cue. Taking a steadying breath, ensuring my phone was still recording the glorious chaos, I made a quick call to the HOA's security hotline. Yes, this is Mark Henderson at 12 Oak Street. I need to report trespassing in progress. There are unauthorized individuals in my pool area, and there seems to be some kind of hazardous material situation. Then, phone held high like a shield, or maybe a trophy, I strode out the back door. Brenda had just managed to heave herself onto the top step, dripping, panting, radiating fury. She looked like something dredged from the bottom of a lime-flavored lagoon. Her yoga pants were saturated, clinging unpleasantly. When her slime-encrusted eyes landed on me, standing there calmly on the patio, phone visibly recording, they bulged. "You," she shrieked, her voice cracking with rage. She pointed a trembling, goo-coated finger. "You did this. You absolute psycho. What is wrong with you?" "Me?" I replied, injecting mock surprise into my voice, though I couldn't entirely suppress the smirk tugging at my lips. "I just got home to find you and your paying guests trespassing in my backyard again, Brenda. Looks like you ran into a bit of trouble." I gestured with my phone towards the vibrating green pool. "What is all this stuff, anyway? Seems awfully sticky." The other woman, realizing she was implicated, stammered, "Brenda, you swore this was allowed. You told me you had an arrangement. You charged me $20. Brenda shot her a look that could curdle milk before turning her fury back to me. "Arrangement? I don't need any arrangement. This is practically a community asset. You selfish, petty." She took a step towards me, intending menace, but her foot slipped on the jello residue already slicking the patio tiles, and she windmill-armed wildly to keep her balance. "Careful," I advised smoothly, keeping the phone steady. "Wouldn't want you to hurt yourself on my property. Especially since the HOA security patrol should be arriving any second now." "Oh, and Brenda?" I let the pause hang for a beat. "My security camera recorded everything. You unlocking the gate with your illegal key, taking the cash, the whole unauthorized swim lesson. Everything." I deliberately panned the phone across the damning scene. The gooey green pool, the weeping teenager, the horrified paying customer, and finally settling back on Brenda, dripping and defeated. Brenda froze mid-tirade. The words, security camera, illegal key, cash, and HOA security, finally penetrated the jello fog of her rage. The color drained from her face, leaving a sickly pale canvas beneath the streaks of green slime. The fight visibly evaporated. She knew finally and absolutely that she was caught. Red-handed, or rather green-handed. Just then, the distinct sound of the HOA patrol vehicle pulling up out front reached the backyard. The final act of Brenda's backyard business bonanza was about to begin, and the star was covered in lime jello. The arrival of Dave, the HOA's no-nonsense security officer, was cinematic in its timing. He walked through the side gate I'd left open for him and stopped dead, his usual stern expression faltering into undisguised disbelief as he surveyed the scene. The quivering green pool, the traumatized-looking teenager wrapped in a towel provided by the other equally slimed woman, and Brenda, standing like a defeated, dripping lime-green gargoyle. "Sweet mother of pearl," Dave muttered under his breath before composing himself. "All right, what exactly is going on here?" "Officer," I said, stepping forward calmly, phone still recording for good measure, though now held lower. "This is my neighbor, Brenda. For several months now, she has been repeatedly trespassing on my property to use my pool, despite numerous verbal and written warnings. Today, I discovered she was operating an illegal, cash-based business, charging neighbors to swim here. I quickly showed him the key footage on my phone, Brenda unlocking the gate, Brenda pocketing the cash. She let herself and these individuals in without my knowledge or permission. As for the pool, I gestured towards the jello-filled spectacle. Apparently, their unauthorized activities resulted in some kind of contamination. Brenda started to splutter. He's lying. It was an accident. He set me up. But Dave held up a firm hand, silencing her. He looked from my phone screen to the pool to the cash-paying witness, who immediately corroborated the payment, and finally landed his steely gaze on Brenda. "Ma'am," Dave said, his voice dangerously quiet. "Let me see if I understand this. You obtained an unauthorized key to your neighbor's property." Brenda flinched. "You repeatedly trespassed after being warned?" She looked down. "You accepted money from residents to use facilities that are not yours, potentially creating insurance liabilities and violating HOA bylaws regarding commercial activity?" Her silence was damning. "And now this gentleman's pool is filled with green goo?" He sighed heavily. "Ma'am, I need your identification. You and your guests need to vacate this property immediately. A full incident report will be filed with the HOA board. Expect significant fines and potentially further action regarding the property damage and unlicensed business operation." The fight was completely gone from Brenda. Deflated, coated in rapidly congealing slime, she fumbled in a waterproof pouch she wore, produced her ID and handed it over wordlessly. The other woman and the teenager, looking utterly mortified, quickly gave Dave their details as witnesses and practically ran from my yard, leaving damp, slightly green footprints behind them. Dave handed Brenda back her ID. "Consider this a formal warning to stay off this property. Permanently. The HOA will be in touch regarding the violations." Brenda nodded mutely, avoiding my gaze, and made her slow, squelching, humiliating retreat through the gate and back towards the perceived safety of her own yard. Dave watched her go, then turned back to me, shaking his head slowly. A tiny smile touched the corner of his lips before vanishing. "Well, Mr. Henderson. You weren't kidding about concrete proof. We'll take it from here on the official side." He glanced back at the pool, a masterpiece of sticky revenge. "As for this, good luck. You're gonna need it." He gave a short nod and departed, leaving me alone with the aftermath. Silence descended, broken only by the strained hum of the pool pump valiantly trying to circulate lime jello and the faint, lingering, sickly sweet smell. I stood there for a long time, just looking at the monument to Brenda's audacity and my own extreme response. It was insane. It was over the top. It was undeniably effective. The great Jell-O pool cleanup of that summer became legendary in my personal history. It took the better part of 3 days. Draining the thickest sludge was step 1, requiring a submersible pump I had to rent. Then came endless cycles of refilling, shocking the water with potent doses of chlorine, backwashing the filter relentlessly, which miraculously and thankfully survived the ordeal with only minor grumbling, and manually scooping out stubborn pockets of residual goo from corners and steps. It was exhausting, sticky, and smelled faintly of limes gone bad. But with every scoop, every chemical treatment, it felt like I was washing away months of accumulated stress, anxiety, and violation. It was a cleansing, a reclaiming of my space. News travels fast in suburbia. Between Dave's official report, the tale told by the mortified woman and her niece, and perhaps Carol connecting the dots, the true story of Brenda's pool-for-profit scheme spread like wildfire. Any narrative Brenda might have tried to spin about my unfriendliness evaporated instantly. Sympathetic glances replaced wary ones. A couple of neighbors even stopped by to offer awkward apologies for maybe having doubted my side of things earlier. Brenda faced the music. Significant HOA fines for multiple violations arrived promptly at her doorstep. I heard secondhand she was also investigating the cost of fence repairs, apparently having damaged her own side during previous, less sophisticated attempts to breach my perimeter. She became a neighborhood phantom. Her car came and went, but Brenda herself was rarely sighted. When she was, those oversized sunglasses were firmly in place, her posture radiating defeat. The aggressive hedge trimming ceased entirely. Silence reigned along the property line. Was turning my swimming pool into a giant vat of lime jello the most mature, well-adjusted response to neighborly conflict? Let's be honest, probably not. Was it disproportionate? Maybe. But standing by my now sparkling clean, blessedly Brenda-free pool weeks later, the late afternoon sun warming my face, the only sound the gentle gurgle of the filter, I felt a profound sense of peace. And yes, a deep, abiding satisfaction. Brenda had relentlessly pushed, ignored boundaries, gaslit, and tried to profit from my property. She treated my sanctuary like a public commodity. So I responded in kind, turning her illicit revenue stream into a sticky, green, humiliating mess. It cost me a small fortune in gelatin and 3 days of hard labor, but the resulting tranquility? The knowledge that my backyard was finally, truly mine again? Utterly priceless. Sometimes, extreme entitlement requires an equally extreme, slightly ridiculous, and ultimately very effective solution. My pool is my sanctuary once more. And the neighborhood? Decidedly flamingo-free.